Hi, my name is Chris Powell and welcome to my company, The Event Expert. In the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to talk to you about the 7 key steps that I use to design, plan and deliver successful events. The steps are based on 22 years practical event management experience in the corporate and public sector. So effectively, I practice what I preach. Incidentally, I'd like to point out that when I delivered my first event in 1994, I knew absolutely nothing about events. So I learned to be an event manager. So I think that you can learn to be an event manager too. So let's get cracking. Let me start talking about those 7 key steps. I want to talk a little bit about the world of events and I want to talk to you about the event planning process. So step 1 is very much about the world of events, and I describe them as the ultimate live marketing experience. Get it right and you're a superhero. Get it wrong and there may well be reputational damage and a little dip in the bank balance as well. Nowadays, if we invest time, effort, money into events, we want some sort of measurable return. So I'm keen to find out what it is that we actually get back. Do we get good audience numbers? Did we get the cash back? Those sorts of things. One of the really tricky things about events is to take really dry subjects and make them interesting and engaging. So we have to bring events alive. So we need a process that takes an idea all the way through to completion. So I have a 7-step process. So my very first step, and one I often find that people kind of forget about, is what I call purpose, creating events that people actually want. And the only way to do that is to do a bit of pre-event market research. So we're looking for desires, we're looking for trends, we're looking for things that actually people want. We also need to take a little peek at the competition as well. So what are we trying to do with this research? Well, we're trying to get some sort of measure of some opinions, some interest levels, and we're trying to identify an audience as well. And how might we do this? Well, we can do kind of formal research, surveys, talk to people, phone them up, or slightly informal and go online and do that stuff online that we often do as well. We may also want to do some surveys and have a look at some pre-event research as well. So just kind of getting ourselves some idea about what might work. Why do we bother? Well, it's really to find out whether your idea is viable. Is there a market? Is it actually worth entering and putting your time, effort and energy into? Is it a good idea in other words? Step 2 is the really interesting one. So those kind of creative types in the room, this is where this is where you begin to play. So in the presentation stage, we're trying to design something that's interesting, engaging, exciting, all those sorts of things as well. I call it kind of like a blueprint. We use words, images, and we use numbers as well. But the key thing here is that we must always think like a guest. This is nothing to do with what I like or what I prefer. This has got everything to do with what our guests would like. So I call it audience-centric, think like a guest. Now the way we do kind of creative exercise, other than fill ourselves full of chocolate and caffeine, which helps me, is I use the what if scenario. What if we had all the cash? What if we were really brave? What if we tore up the rule book and started again? What would we do? Kind of wild brainstorming, I call it. I don't know if you've ever done any of that before, but give it a go. And what we're trying to do is to come up with a whole bunch of ideas that fit the audience, fit what they might like. And then we need to think about how much they might cost. We need to think about whether the audience actually likes them. Does it actually fit the original purpose as well? And the final thing is just an operational thing. Do you think you and I could actually deliver it? So as I said earlier, fill people full of chocolate and caffeine and actually they get very, very creative. So I want you to be brave. So that's the 2nd step. The 3rd step, which is effectively where I spend most of my life, is planning events. And in fact, the more time and effort I put into planning events, the easier it gets to actually sleep at night. So I always say every sort of hour spent planning an event is an hour well spent. So we're thinking about the end product. So what is the event that we're actually looking for? So what is it going to entail? What's it going to look like? So with the end in mind, we can start putting into place some of the things that will need to happen to make sure that happens. So we need a team. So we're going to organize, persuade, recruit. In any way you need to get that team of people on board your planning team. You're going to have to organize them into kind of roles and how you're going to work with them, all those sorts of things as well. We need stuff, as I call it, and this is the technical term is infrastructure. So we're looking at stages, microphones, fences and all those sorts of stuff, and marquees. So that's what we call infrastructure. So what is it you actually need? And the people that are going to provide that are your contractors. So what we're actually looking for is contractors who are called competent contractors. They know what they're doing. Unfortunately, we're going to have to talk money, and at the planning stage, that is exactly what we do. We talk money. So we need to think about the budget, how it's going to work, what we're going to do with it. And importantly, we need to have some sort of financial strategy. So what is it we actually want to achieve? Do we want to make a bit of money? Are we happy to lose a little bit of money and accept that that's okay? Or do we just want to spend the budget? So it's just a break-even budget. So there is some need for financial strategy as well. And the only way to do this realistically is to have a plan. So we call it a project plan. Nothing particularly special, it's just a list of stuff to do, okay? So that's our event project plan. So just to kind of recap then, on those little 5 minutes, we've had stage 1 where we talked about purpose. I've asked you to do a bit of pre-event research. Stage 2 is where I've asked you to kind of get all creative and design stuff. And stage 3 is the planning one, which we've just done, where I've asked you to think about budgets, I've asked you to think about contractors, I've asked you to think about project planning as well. So those are kind of the stages that we would use. What I'd like to do is to talk about stage 4. I call it places or event spaces. So this is the venues that we're going to use. So the first and foremost thing that we've got to do is kind of set a venue criteria, as I call it. So what are we looking for? Kind of types, sizes, numbers, location, parking, how long we're going to be there, all those sorts of things. So we get this kind of venue criteria. And the venue criteria then allows us to search. And what that means is that we can go online, we can talk to venue finding agencies and all those sorts of people and actually work out, kind of shortlist a bunch of venues that fit us. So we do a shortlist, we then need to go and visit these people, have a little look around what it is they've got to offer. I should say. And then when we're there, we need to do kind of what I call a venue evaluation. So we kind of walk around the building, we look at what's there, we look at where the stages are, the power, the parking, and all those sorts of things as well. So we're evaluating whether the venue fits what it is that we're trying to do. And if you like it, then we'll contract it. So that's where we sign away our life. We put a contract in place, and usually the venues tend to like us to put some money up front as well. We call it deposit. So that's stage 4. Stage 5 is one of my favourite parts. I like the creative bit, but I love the idea of actually putting together a program that really works. And the way we need to do this is to think back to the audience and to think of value, because this is everything to do with the audience. It's got nothing to do with me. It's got everything to do with the audience. If they spend time, effort, and money to come to my event, then the program has to work for them. In my eyes, this is exactly why they sign up. They don't sign up to eat my food or to park in my car park or to wander around my venue. They sign up because of what they're going to learn, see, and do. So we need to deliver a program that I call it delivers the money action. And what I mean by that is kind of behavior change. So if I spend half an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours with you, what is it you want me to think, say, or do as a result of coming to your event? So I call it behavior change. And in my eyes, it's incredibly important that when somebody leaves your event, they're different. They've had a good time, they remember you, so you're memorable. So I call that behavior change. Whenever we put anything into a program, we always think about impact. Has it been useful, valuable? Is it relevant? And how long does it take? And of course, nowadays, we just like a mix of activities as well, so not the same thing. So keep it engaging, keep it relevant, and then when people leave your event, they'll actually have a very strong memory of what it is that you're actually doing. Now, having a fantastic event is one thing, maybe the best event in the world, but in my world, great event, poorly promoted equals certain failure. So event promotion is one of the things that we're particularly keen on. And as operational types, we often leave the promotion to the end. But the promotion itself is an ongoing process. So first and foremost, we're back to the audience. I've mentioned them a few times. What is it they like or do, on their promotional media? What is it? Do they like email? Do they like social media? So we need to understand what it is that they actually like.